Welcome to Childcare Conversations, the podcast where early childhood leaders like you get real-world strategies, honest talk, and a whole lot of support. Whether you're running one center or many, we're here to help you lead with confidence and clarity. This episode is brought to you by this quarter's sponsor, Playground, the all-in-one childcare management software. We're all about managing monkeys and saving you time at your center. With this platform, you can. We're proud to partner with a team that's as committed to your success as we are. Learn more at tryplayground.com. Now, let's get into today's conversation, one we think you're really going to love.
So welcome to today's episode, and we are so excited to bring Lori Buxton from AELL, also known as the Association of Early Learning Leaders, as our guest. Carrie was still trying to figure out how to get ready, so I apologize for anybody who was watching. But we are so excited to bring Lori on, and she's going to share with us a little bit about, we're going to start with kind of how Lori ended up in early childcare, and then we're going to just talk a little bit about AEL and, have a conversation.
Sounds good. So thank you guys so much for having me on. You know, I love you more than my luggage. We have such a good time when we get to hang out together. And so this is fun. And, I was telling Kate and Carrie before, while we were in the virtual green room, how much I love that, that the brand and this whole concept is about conversations, because, that's my favorite thing to do, is have a conversation. And so I'm really excited about this one. So you asked about how I got in this. Well, it was quite by accident, and I didn't intend to stay. I mean, being honest, I went through a pretty rough divorce in the early 2000s, and my younger sister was an assistant director at a childcare center. And I came home to Texas with my little ones with, a broken heart and a broken life. And, I just honestly, I needed a place to land while I figured out what was next for me. And so she said, we need somebody in the 3-year-old room, and you're really good at telling stories, and we can teach you the rest. And I said, okay. She goes, and you get free childcare. I'm like, sold. And so they put me in the 3-year-old room and I've always been really good with children. That wasn't an issue, but I'd not really been with the littles. And so this was going to be a new adventure, other than the ones that I gave birth to. And, that was the extent of my experience. Right. And so I went into that 3-year-old classroom with just so busted up and broken up. And to this day, and it's been so many years later, I still remember what that day felt like. Those kiddos came up to me. They couldn't even remember my name. I was Miss Teacher, and Lori is hard to say, when you're 3. And so all day long, I was Miss Teacher this, Miss Teacher that. And it was such pure, unconditional, unending love for no good reason at all. If I made a misstep, I still got invited to the birthday parties. If I didn't get all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, they still loved me and wanted me to come back tomorrow. And I think that my broken heart and my children's broken heart were healed in that place, because people were there for all the right reasons, doing all the right things. And I remember feeling like I couldn't wait to go back, because it was kind of like a balm, to your soul. And I just realized how important that work was. And I saw the impact it had on my own children. And I was like, okay, I'm in 150%. What can I do next? And I've always been in leadership in my, I was in retail for years before that. And I just, when you're a leader, you lead. And so I made it my business to learn and to grow. And then I found out how I could contribute and how I can grow. And how it's funny, because I was in a classroom for probably 5 or 6 years before I started to move up into leadership, because I needed to learn the field. I needed to learn and understand before I could truly lead. And so I did that. And as I started moving up through the ranks, and how you wear all the hats and you get a t-shirt in a variety of sizes and colors. And I did all that work. And as I started to lead, I knew, especially when I took my first director's role, when I said yes to that, I knew that I needed to have something to support me in that. And at the time, there wasn't a lot out there for focused leadership. It was you'd have beautiful, wonderful teacher conferences, and you'd have tracks that provided resources and training for leaders. Yeah,
Maybe,
maybe. Yeah, if you
maybe.
were lucky,
Might have
right.
been 1 or 2. What do you
Might have
think,
been 1
Carrie?
or 2. Exactly. And so I knew that I needed some supports. And so my mentor and my friend, Chris Smith, was a part of the National Association for Childcare Professionals, which is what we were back in the day. We had a rebrand about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, and became the Association for Early Learning Leaders. But I went to my first conference in 2001 was my first conference. So I guess I got my timing off. When you get to be my age, your timing starts to go out the window.
So
So
do you mean your
so
first
it was the late
conference?
90s. Yeah. It
Are
was
you
the
talking
late
about your first
90s when I
conference as a
started.
teacher? First conference as a
My
teacher?
very first conference when?
As a teacher? Is that what you meant?
No, this was as
No.
a new leader,
Okay.
She
All
said,
right.
this is where you go. This is because these people are all about leaders. The whole conference is focused on leaders. You're not just a sidetrack. You're not just anything. You're the whole thing. You're the main focus. And so I showed up and I was kind of blown away by all of the opportunities I had to learn there. And it wasn't just about education. It was about business. It was about leading people. It was about taking care of resources and understanding the laws and all the things that, you go get your credentials in early education and they don't always come with the business part. They don't always come with how to do the whole thing, not just the fun part where you get to, educate people. And so I went to that first conference, and I'll tell you, in April, when we're in Reno, I will be celebrating my 25th consecutive conference with the association.
Awesome.
And yeah, I drank that Kool-Aid, both hands, big cups, and I have been a part of the association.
Exercise.
I volunteered for a lot of years, and then I was invited to be on the board. I served on the board for 8 years, and then came off to. I was only actually supposed to fill in for the ED position, and you go to the bathroom and you come back and you have a new job. That's how it works,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to do that. That's why you got to do it
No.
before the meeting.
I learned the hard way. Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely learned that the
I
hard
also
way.
had similar stories. Well, at least in Texas. So the Texas After School Association, I was their first ED.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. Now in Oklahoma, they tried to hire me for one job, and I talked them into having an ED's position because I really didn't want to be an admin assistant.
Well done, you.
And so, well, and that was, 22 years ago, before people really worked remote. And I
Right.
lived in Lawton, Oklahoma, and the job was in Oklahoma City. And I went, how about you get 2 roles? You get a part-time admin who can stay in your office, and then I'll come up 3 days a week and to work from home 2 days a week. And so that
It's
was
very creative thinking there.
Kelly Ramsey's first year as board chair with Oklahoma AYC. And so it's the only time I actually asked for a job and wasn't, like Carrie said, went to the bathroom and
See
came
what I
back and
hear
had a
you
new
saying.
position.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that you were kind of you were on the leading edge. You were an influencer in remote work well before any of us knew what that was.
Oh, I mean, I remote worked pretty much for over 30 years before it was a thing. And so like
Nicely done.
my original cover letters all talk about the fact that I have a home-based office and that I am very used to this kind of work. And because Carrie and I
Nice.
had our business had an office. I had a publishing company that had a traditional
Yep.
office. And then I had 4 kids,
Yeah, that changes
and
things.
I needed to figure out how to work around all their schedules and all their
Yeah,
stuff. So it was just easier to
sure.
do it in the evening. So yep.
Sure.
So
Well, like I said, I really love this idea of conversations. Even when I teach and train, if I don't think of if I'm on a stage in front of 500,000 people or I'm sitting in a room with 5 people, for me, it's all a conversation. It's
so
all,
you mentioned when we were starting that
yeah,
NACCP started as a
Mhm.
conversation. So
Yes.
tell us more
It
about
really
that.
did. Absolutely. So, back in 1984, a long, long time ago, before many of you were born, I know it makes me sad, but it is what it is. Um, yeah, leaders did what leaders do. They realized, and if you haven't realized this yet, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, you'll realize it really quick. You can't do this alone. It is a big job. and it's a big load on the shoulders, and it's just not intended to be a solo sport. And so, some leaders reached out to other leaders in their neighborhood and said, "Can we talk?" They needed, I don't know if you've ever gone home to your significant other and described one of your days in a center and heard what their solutions to your problems are. I'm married to a landscape general contractor, and when I first took this role and I started coming home with the stories we all have about, you're not even going to believe what happened today. And when I'd come home and tell him those stories, he goes, "Well, you just need to get rid of them." I said, "Oh, are you going to be in the 2-year-old room tomorrow? Because somebody has to be there. It's not as easy as saying bye, and what these leaders discovered who founded the organization is that we don't need to see each other and shouldn't see each other as competition. We really need to see and embrace the collaboration. That when we have these conversations, the first thing we discover is that even though our stories sound crazy to other people, they make complete sense to us. We also we get the kind of support that I think we need. That there's not judgment, there's not accusation, there's not any of those things. We just really get each other. And I have found in my life, whether it's in your personal life or in or professional world, when you can find somebody that gets you, that is one of the greatest gifts you can ever receive. Because the worst thing in the world is to feel like you're all alone in this and nobody understands. I think that is the shortest road to burnout. And Lord knows that we need every one of us that has this calling, that has this heart and passion for this field to stay. They need to have what they need. They need to have the people they need, the resources they need, the phone of friends, all of the things so that on the days that are tough, they don't die of it. And
Yep.
on the days that are great, they have someone to celebrate them with that really understands why
Absolutely,
we're
'cause,
celebrating.
mine would be, who can I call? Because look, I got the toddler teacher to stay past lunch. Yay!
I know, right?
Um,
They said yes.
yes,
They
and
said
I
yes
mean,
to the room, not yes to the dress. Yes to the room.
See, that's your
Carrie and
next project right there. Yeah,
absolutely. Carrie and I have all kinds of stories related to significant other stories and clients we've
sure.
worked with over the decades that we were like, look, because teaching director credentialing here in Texas for the
Oh,
last
yeah.
24 years, we have a lot of stories that folks can tell us about how their
Mhm.
spouses responds, or significant others, or
Sure.
parents or siblings, right? Like, who
Mhm.
nobody ever really likes going home for the holidays because they want to ask you how your job is, and you have to act like it's all okay. And meanwhile, you
Mhm.
might have had a parent got mad at you because you're going to be closed, and they want you, and you want them to pay. I mean, it is that
Mhm.
time of year.
Yeah.
So, in December, we
Yeah.
always have parents who never understand why they need to
Yeah.
pay. And, as this is my one tidbit, maybe not my one, but it's the one I'm going to give right now, which is,
Yeah.
if you're listening to this and you're about to start January and you've got even one parent who doesn't understand, like Lori said, sometimes people get into this field because they love children, but not because they necessarily understand the business aspect. And
Mhm.
start talking about your tuition as being annual tuition that the parents have the option to pay as 12 months or 52
Mhm.
weeks.
Yes.
And therefore, if they get a 2-week vacation, so do you. And I was very fortunate.
Mhm.
I was actually one of Carrie's directors. Carrie had 4 locations. And
Aw.
Carrie actually was super about this because everybody had a 2-week paid vacation. And she
Mhm.
decided for everybody in advance when that was going to be. And that went for the families and it went for the staff. And
There you go.
no parent ever. So I was the director of location number 4. And we never had a parent argue.
Yeah.
And we even took over a program. And so it wasn't even like, because they were
Right.
raised with us. They weren't even raised with us. And no, but not a single
Mhm.
parent ever complained when positioned as an annual tuition. And that, again, during initial
Yeah.
parent meetings, how many of you have a vacation, 2 weeks? They would all raise their hand.
Right.
Great. Here's when you're going to be planning them.
Well, and it also, if, and, you know, they could pay it in one lump sum and they got one rate. If they wanted to pay it in 12 payments, this is what those 12 equal payments were. If they wanted to pay it in 50 increments, this is what the payment was. Now, very few people ever did the math and realized that if they paid in 50 payments, they were paying more than if they paid it in one. And if they
Sure.
asked me, I just said, well, is
It's a
the milk
convenience.
cheaper at 7-Eleven or at the grocery store?
Right.
It is
You're
cheaper
paying a
at the grocery
convenience fee.
store. And so if you want the cheapest price, pay me once. If you want the convenience, you have to pay a little bit more. And then they were like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that
Wow.
makes sense. And I'm like,
But you know what you did that I think a lot of people don't, and you can apply it to this policy on vacation and tuition, and you can apply it to 100 other policies and procedures, both internally and externally, is that we don't tell people why. We just say, do this. We say, sign here, do this, follow that, and we don't ever tell them why or what it's about or what it's for. And I think that's such a disservice, not only to them, but really to us, because we spend so much time arguing and convincing and retelling and retelling and retelling, when you could just tell them this is what we do, this is why we do it this way.
yeah.
And then they're making an informed decision about whether they're cool with that, right? If they don't like the way that you do business, they have options.
Well, for instance, like when they enroll at your center and they have to write their name and address and phone number on 16 different things or enter it on the computer on 16 different things. And if you just say, no, you need to do these 16 different forms, then they don't understand. But if we say, this is the teacher, this is the classroom form, I can't, because of confidentiality, I can't tell them anything about your child's development. So I need you to put it here in the teacher form. And if you don't want to give them your contact number so that they can't contact you, that's fine. We have it in the office.
Sure.
You don't have to put your contact information in the teacher form. You need to put your child's name and birth date. And everything else you put
basic
on there
information,
is what that teacher will know about your child's development. I, as the director, or I, as the owner, you can tell me that your child was born with cerebral palsy and addicted to 47 different things, including, hot rollers. And, but I can't tell the teacher that this kid is
It's
a
not
hot
mine to
roller
share.
kid, because I can only take confidential information up the chain of command, and the teacher is down the chain of command. So if you want to let the teacher know that your kid gets hot rollers in their hair, you have to tell them. I can't tell them. And they're like, oh, you're protecting my child's confidentiality. That's why I have to fill out one set of forms for the kitchen manager, because we're on the food program, and one set of forms for the teacher, and one set of forms for the state, and one for the school roster, so that the parents can communicate with each other about birthday parties.
And the county health forms.
Right.
So, like the list goes on. And that's such a valid point, Carrie, is that sometimes we forget to tell people why. And if you think about that communication skill, that conversation skill that we want every leader to have, whether they are a classroom leader or a leader over multiple classrooms, or they are the director, or even head of parents or head of curriculum, whatever leadership title we've given them, we expect them to communicate, but sometimes we forget some of the basics, which is why. And
We
so,
do.
I kind of feel like if a 2-year-old's going to ask you why, assume that parent should have asked you why. And chances are your staff, if you don't tell them why, they're going to make up their own decision on why you need that.
Well, in the absence of information, they make it up. And I just wonder, Carrie, how much time you saved from the other 25 conversations that would have happened because they didn't understand why, or the aggravation and what have you, that you saved by doing it that way. And, never underestimate the opportunity to connect, even through the business routine, what have you. If you have presence with that family, with that parent, that grandparent, whomever they are, then you have an opportunity to create a meaningful connection with them that's going to support the relationship moving forward. So these are, it's more than just a task to check off the list. It's an opportunity to be with that family and to connect. And so I think that, and how much do they appreciate you taking the time to explain it? Rather than sit there aggravated because they have to fill out the same form 12
Well,
times.
and we've lost some of that as we've gone to more digital
Sure.
and everybody's filling out, "Oh, I'm gonna send you the email with all your forms," right? We've lost some of
Mhm.
that there. Um, I've noticed fewer
Mhm.
and fewer programs have parent boards and parent-specific events. There's a lot of
Mhm.
family events, but we have a
Yeah.
tendency to kind of forget those parent events. And when now Carrie's vacation time, I will tell you that theory saved so much agony over the years of those programs because I don't know. I
Sure.
mean, Lori, as a director, I know you had to schedule vacations, right? Not only do you
Sure.
have your staff vacations, but you got the parents going on vacation and the parents who don't think they should have to pay while they're on vacation and all
Mhm.
of that.
Right.
And now, granted, Carrie's was entirely selfish because, so if you don't know Lori, Carrie and I are cousins, and we have
Did not know that. I'm learning
Lori,
so many fun
surprise.
things today.
But one of the things that is that for literally, I don't know, a century, our family has celebrated 4th of July in Wisconsin at this family farm. And so it's always the week of 4th of July. So when Carrie opened
Right.
her first program, when it was a registered family home, she was always closed the week of 4th of July. And
Right.
she noticed the parents were always gone the week between Christmas and New Year. So
Yep.
there we go. It was just decided. So
I mean,
Mhm.
I
and
did have conversations with parents before doing it, and so many of the parents were like, "Yeah, we either get bonus time or we're scheduled off." So
Sure.
even the people working retail who didn't get the days off between Christmas and New Year's,
Mhm.
they were getting paid time and a half, and somebody in
Right.
their family was available. So it might be
Correct.
Meemaw,
That's what I was
it
gonna
might be,
say. Yeah.
whatever, but they were like, "Yeah, we could probably that week would probably be
Make that
okay."
work.
So I did do some
Mm.
market research. I wasn't just
Yeah.
I didn't on the July 4th. I was like, "The July 4th is happening." But the other one, I was like, "Should it be
Yeah.
spring break or Christmas?" And they were like, "Let's,
Yeah.
Christmas because it's like 6 months."
It's
And it
consistent.
allowed
Yeah.
people to accrue some more personal time off at their work if they needed
Mhm.
that and all of that.
Right.
it
But
also allowed the teachers and staff, and especially the teachers and staff, to come back with that sense of joy. And one
Mhm.
of the things that literally the whole time Carrie and I've been training that we've wanted folks to remember is that you have a unique opportunity in this job. You get to play and you
You
have the
do.
ability to play. Now, a lot of women and men in leadership in that role don't, right? Like we schedule ourselves down to the 15 minutes and we don't schedule in Play-Doh time. We don't schedule in infant snuggles.
You're
Think
preaching
about how
my sermon, girl.
every director would be so much happier if they had
I
every
mean,
day at 10:30 they had to go snuggle
that's
some
right.
infant. Now, if you had to put me in a
Mhm.
toddler room, we might have an issue. Uh,
hey,
It's a sweet place to visit, but I couldn't live
no, no,
there.
no.
No.
Okay, guys, here's the thing. When you're going into a toddler room, I suggest doing it when they're outside on the playground and bringing a spray bottle full of water. Because if you spray
Ooh.
water on grass or even on, AstroTurf, snails will just show up. I don't know where they were, but if you spray that little bit of water, the snails just show up and the toddlers are fascinated by those snails walking around.
How fun is that?
And it's a real easy way to get some amazing time with toddlers is to get the snails and the roly
Okay.
polies to come out.
Noted.
can't you tell that Carrie was a toddler teacher, Lori?
Yep. Let me just tell you that in my mind, toddler two teachers are gifts from heaven. Straight from heaven. It
No,
is
we're
such
just
a
crazy.
beautiful calling. Well, that's okay. That's all right. I think we're all a little crazy. That's why we're willing to play and to be silly and what have you. But I'm just telling you, that is such a beautiful and very unique calling.
All right. So We can sit here and have this
Yeah.
conversation all day with Lori, but Lori, why
Yeah.
don't you take a few minutes and tell folks who are listening who maybe have only heard of AELL, like that you have a
Sure.
conference or I don't know, some webinars where like, I don't know, people like us are,
Yeah.
and because I'm sure they've all heard that because that's appeared in our newsletter. But tell them some other things that AELL offers other than one annual
Sure.
conference and some webinars, because there's a lot that you guys
Right.
bring to the as
Yeah.
resources to the to the industry. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for.
Right. Yeah, words are hard. Yeah, and especially at the end of the day. So yes, and I'm so proud to have been a part of developing a lot of this. And what I love is because this was founded by directors, it always kind of has that director's heartbeat, and we don't wander too far from where we came from so that we can stay connected, have our ears and eyes tuned into what leaders need. And so we, as you said, we have the national conference every year, typically in April. We go all over the country, and it's well, it's really a week for me, but 3.5 days for everybody else. Where we just come together and grow, connect, and network and what have you. And I love that. It's a wonderful time. But we also understand that not everybody can get away for a national conference. It's not, feasible. Don't have the resources, don't have the coverage, et cetera. And so in 2019, you mentioned our mutual friend, Tim Smith. We worked together with our board to create a regional training series for people that couldn't get out, but we wanted them to know the resources we have and the resources that we are, the resource that we are. And so LEAD is a regional event where we go out and about. We kind of do it regionally, and it's a Friday, half day Saturday kind of thing. So people don't have to get a long time away from the office, out of work, don't have to go far. And it's a smaller group, which I'll tell you, I wasn't sure how it was going to go. When you start something, you throw in spaghetti at the glass to see what sticks. But this has been so special for us because I think when you come together in a smaller collective, you have different kinds of conversations. You're able to kind of take a deeper dive. You're able to talk more specifically to what's going on in your world, what's going on in your schools, how we can meet those needs, how we can support those needs and what have you. And it has just become our favorite. I love conference, and I'll always love conference. It's where I found, that's how I found this association. But I got to tell you, I love me some LEAD. It is, and with some groups, we've had as many as 100, 125, and sometimes we have 20. And the dynamic is so good because again, they're coming together with people in their neighborhood, which is nice, because like I said, we need to move past the competition thinking and move into the collaborative space, because if we all showed up with the best stuff we had on every day of every week, we still couldn't meet all the need. So we need to lock arms, and we need to lock hearts and support our communities and raise good humans, in our
Yep.
schools. And so, and that's what we try to make possible. So through LEAD, we're able to do that in kind of micro groups. And a lot of times that's the first time people have heard about us. They're like, this is our first event. And then that will lead them to find other resources. Like we have a national accreditation platform that is on par with NACE, NECPA, or anybody else. And we are recognized all over the United States. And one of the things I think that makes us unique is that our approach is we. It's not you're going through accreditation or self-study. It's we're going through it. Our team is there to support. We support teachers and helping them understand the why of accreditation and elevating standards so that it's not just the owner or the director saying we're going to do this. We want them to have the buy-in, and we support those leaders in getting it. So we are very much a we on accreditation. So if you are accredited through another agency, I encourage you to check us out when you come up for renewal. If you're currently accredited with us, then what I'm talking about. And if you have not done accreditation and want to know more, please ask, because that, to me, minimum is never going to be good enough. The standards that the states require or regionals, whatever the makeup is in your particular state, that's the bare minimum that we do to stay open. For any child, a minimum is not enough. We need to
No.
always be elevating, always be improving. And so that's what
Absolutely.
accreditation does. And then, of course, we have the webinars where my friends are frequent guests and bless us with all their knowledge and their wit and their passion. And we have a kind of a special event every January. Yeah. It's called the Executive Invitational Series. And it is designed for owners and executive leaders in early education. And it really that's also conversations, people having conversations about what's going on 100,000 feet. Because if we've been teachers in classrooms, we've been directors, and we've worked for other people, et cetera. And I've got to tell you that we need our owners to be equipped. We need those executives to be well-rounded so that they can support the work we're doing in schools. And that's what the purpose of that event is we bring in business experts, leadership experts that support the work that happens way up here to make sure that policies are right, that best practices are in place, that resources are available, all those things to support strong, healthy early education programs. We are always looking at ways that we can bring things online. We have great relationships with vendors that offer discounts to our schools to ensure that they have the very best in resources. We have great relationships with, other agencies that can support growth and development, both, of your skills as well as your business practices. We have good friends like you guys, that come alongside and partner with us to make sure that every leader is fully equipped, fully empowered, and inspired to do this. Whatever their race is, I don't want us to, get through the finish line just dragging our tired, weary bodies. I want to run through the finish line with my hair on fire, and I want to support every leader to do the same. I think that this is such a unique and incredible calling on our lives. And it breaks my heart when I see somebody burn out. And that's probably
Absolutely.
my underlying motivation.
Well, on that note, I don't think we can end on anything that is more of we all three agree on that. And that is why we do what we do here at Childcare Conversations and why we do what we do at ECE NAC. And that's why we do what we do in all of these places. So if you enjoyed this show, if you got something you need to share with someone else, please go ahead and share the show.
Yes.
Like or subscribe or follow, whatever it's called on your podcast player of choice. Remember, you can see our silly faces on YouTube if you would like to. And if there's a message you need to get to AELL, you can go into the show notes and email the show or text the show, and we will get that over to Lori and her team over at AELL. And remember to come out, go to those conferences, whether it's the regional ones or the national ones, and go find your people.
Yes.
We'll talk to you in a few days.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in. We love bringing you real talk and fresh insight from the world of early childhood education. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay connected and catch all of the latest episodes. And if you're planning a conference, training, or special event, Kate and Carrie would love to speak to your audience. You can learn more about their keynote sessions and workshops at kateandcarrie.com. If you learned something today, share the show and leave us a review below. We'll see you next time on Childcare Conversations.